With the Marvel Cinematic Universe coming to its ultimate climax with Avengers Doomsday, I thought about how I would run the MCU if I was the guy running the show from beginning to end. In this scenario, Marvel's bankruptcy was less intense, and they didn't sell the rights to their characters. Marvel decides to open Marvel Studios and picks me as their guy, and I decide that 2008 would be the year we introduce The Incredible Hulk. This took me over 2 years to turn this into a proper audio, and unfortunately I'm using AI to narrate, but it's much better than my voice. I hope you enjoy. The Incredible Hulk 2008. 2008. The United States has entered an arms race since the attacks on 9/11/01 and the beginning of the War on Terror. Military agents and scientists have tried to find new ways to support and/or enhance soldiers. That's when a genius had an idea to make a fortune. Bruce Banner is a young, brilliant scientist. He has degrees in biology and chemistry. When he learned about the ongoing military enhancement projects, he applied for a loan and possibly received military aid. He did get the loan, but there was little help from the military, given the number of scientists competing for military contracts. Bruce has the money and the material to create his machine that will enhance the human body. In an attempt to create a super soldier serum, he holds a public event to pay off his loan and decides to use gamma-controlled waves to strengthen the human body. He felt the harmful effects of the radiation could be filtered out, leaving the benefits of gamma. The experiment would be held in a building near the harbor of New York City in Hell's Kitchen. The test subject, Arnold Smith, is good friends with Bruce and volunteered for the experiment to help his friend, knowing how passionate he is. The event, while held publicly, is seen by few people. One person is a high school student who is excited to see this science experiment, but something interrupts it. An odd green spark shoots from the gamma wave and lands on the student. He runs outside, clearly ill. Bruce sees this kid run out and sighs, having not noticed the spark that landed on the kid. He now worries it is just a waste of time, but Arnie reassures him, saying it could be a breakthrough. Bruce regains his motivation, and the show begins. The green spark from earlier caused the gamma machine to lag and altered some of the machine's code, leading to the machine failing, and the gamma shot out as lightning, striking Arnie once in the torso. The machine began to heat up, and lightning began shooting out everywhere. Bruce managed to prevent any more harm to anyone by stepping in the way of the lightning striking Bruce. Because of the uncontrolled radiation, eventually the machine breaks and falls apart. Bruce collapses in exhaustion. Arnie gets up in pain and runs over to Bruce, trying to wake him. He extends his hand and slaps Bruce. His eyes shoot open, but they aren't the brown irises he normally had. They had become gray. Arnie sighs in relief, but then sees his body expand and rip out of his clothes. All of a sudden, this big raging gray monster is towering over Arnie. Arnie attempts to flee as spectators take pictures and videos. The posts are shared all over the internet and in the news. This gray rage-filled monster destroys the entire ground floor of the building and jumps out of the building and fled the city before evading all law enforcement trying to subdue him. The government was swiftly informed. Colonel Ross claims Bruce Banner created this monster. He said the military gave him support for this project. Ross's daughter was a close friend to him, and that was the reason he gave any support in the first place. Ross said that they need to find Bruce Banner and figure out what this monster was. After a year, the military is still trying to track down Bruce, who is trying to reach the Canadian border. He has been trying to find a cure for this monster that has been becoming less gray. His experiments to cure this disease rarely go into depth because he is always running. In Montana, A small military task force tracking down Bruce managed to determine where he will be and when he will attempt to cross the border, so they strike quickly. Bruce, with the constant running, has his senses heightened and figures out what is going on and tries running and almost makes it past the border, but he is subdued before he can and is tranquilized. After being thrown into a military vehicle, he was taken to a hidden facility in an unknown area in the United States. Bruce had not transformed into the monster for months, since he was responsible for the safety of everyone around him. Once he woke up, he was immediately interrogated and asked by Ross who this monster, this hulking man, was. Bruce said Hulk has disappeared, he doesn't know. After an excruciating interrogation, and Bruce not complying, they told him they planned to perfect his machine. Since it had shown potential, it just needed to be tweaked. Bruce advised against it, explaining how horribly it failed. He had also said that the machine would have failed from the start. He realized that the small spark that had originally gone unnoticed and had completely crossed his mind may have been a major cause of this. However, while on the run trying to figure out why the machine failed, he realized he had seen a major flaw in the design. Colonel Ross said that the machine was a freak accident, and they would fix it up for him. They would manage to create and control the Hulk, so to speak. They began reconstructing the machine using the blueprints found at his old home. Bruce is imprisoned in his cell, helping when he can, reasoning that if they are going to reconstruct this, they might as well do it right. There was no need to create another monster. After the machine is finished, Ross sends for his prisoner subject, a former war criminal working for the KGB, Emil Blonsky. Bruce pleads for them not to go through with it, as it will likely cause him to die, or another monster will be created, but to no avail. Ross looks at Bruce asking since a monster was created from not just the Gamma, who transformed into the Gray monster. A spectator, maybe, Bruce himself? Bruce denies these claims, just begging not to go through with it. Ross turns around and tells his men to shut him up. He will deal with him after the experiment. When the machine started, it worked as intended at first. Emil's muscles began to grow. His body became bigger and stronger, but the components couldn't take the pressure of the extreme radiation. It began to break down. It began to shake violently. Ross looks at Bruce, who has been gagged and is still trying to scream. Ross asks if this is the intended result. Bruce shakes his head and fear sweeps over the laboratory. Emil is being injected with gamma radiation, and it is turning his body green and making it even bigger. Ross shouts to shut it all off, and when they do, Emil shrinks back down to his normal state, and he falls into a coma. Bruce lost his temper. In a muffled voice he shouted, "Ross!" not heeding his warnings, which caused his stress to rise. His eyes became gray. The colonel walked up to him and told him to shut up. He told his men to get Bruce to solitary confinement. Then Bruce's body began to enlarge, becoming gray and ripping out of his clothing. The room went silent, and they watched as Bruce turned into this large Hulk. He shouts in a blind rage, punching his way out of the facility. Ross regains his composure and shouts at his men over a walkie-talkie, telling them to stop the gray monster. The Hulk jumped football fields in a single bound. He was in the desert. The Hulk was constantly looking back at the compound and avoiding the gunfire. He then jumped far away from the military base. The Hulk continued making insane leaps and bounds, moving hundreds of miles from jump to jump, and then seeing a small town to hide in for a day or two. Once he landed, he immediately fell to his knees, transformed back into Bruce, and lost consciousness. The next morning, Bruce wakes up in bed and gets up, realizing he has pajamas on. He walks out the door, sees an old lady, and asks her where he is. The lady responds, claiming she saw him in a crater almost completely nude. She had her sons take him to her hotel and let him rest. Bruce thanks her, but he doesn't have any money to pay her. She tells him to shush. She gives him two $20 bills and tells him to go to her son, the one working at the local diner. He will give him clothes and give him some food. The money will help pay for transportation. He thanks her and asks her name. She says to call her Mama Maria. He thanks her once again before going to the diner. Inside the diner, he saw the son of Mama Maria, and he told Bruce to put these clothes on in the bathroom. After putting them on, he walked out and ordered a cup of black coffee. The boy apologized. The only pair of pants that would fit were purple. While he makes the coffee for him, Bruce asks how bad the crater was. He had hoped the monster hadn't hurt anyone or caused any damage to this town. He said it looked like a small meteor hit the outside of town. Bruce apologizes, saying that he carries a heavy burden with him, which can cause such things. The boy responds, asking what the hell kind of burden he carries around. He asks if this is an adult thing. Being 13, he only knew about money burdens adults had. As Bruce is having this conversation and notices on the Daily Bugle from a small television on the wall, describing a creature looking like an aquatic animal that had appeared in New York City, where the original experiment was held, it was terrorizing the city. Bruce knew he had to help, but still didn't know where he is. He asked the boy where they were. The boy said, the Nevada desert. He thanked him, saying his burden might just be used to help people this time. The boy was about to ask what he meant when the ground started shaking, and then, all of a sudden, the jets flew overhead. Bruce looked outside and saw lines of tanks and military vehicles. Bruce handed the $40 to the boy, saying to take it and get his mother to safety. The boy was about to question the order, but before he could ask, Bruce told him again to go. The boy began running to his mother and led her into the hotel. Bruce took his shirt, shoes, and socks off, folded his clothes nicely, and put them at the footstep of the diner, and walked into the street. Connell Ross spotted Bruce and ordered his men to apprehend him before he hulks out. On the desert horizon, they noticed a scrawny man in purple pants sprinting out of this town. Ross ordered his men to follow and began chasing him. After getting far enough away from the town, he raised his stress level with coffee to heighten his heart rate. Turning into the Hulk once again, Ross shouts at the men to fire at him. Killing him would allow them to analyze his blood and his DNA, which could be vital in progressing the super soldier serum. The Hulk began to run towards the tanks, avoiding the bullets and missiles being shot at him. He grabbed a tank by the nose and began spinning rapidly, then threw the tank at another tank, destroying both of them. All of a sudden, something exploded in the Hulk's face, knocking him down. He looked up at the jet that had fired upon him and waited for it to dive back down and make another attack run. He jumped high up and grabbed the jet, sending the Hulk flying back. He looked at the pilot, who pulled his eject cord and escaped the jet. Hulk landed back onto the ground and balled up the jet's remains and threw it at the oncoming vehicles coming at him. The cars tried to evade but skidded and crashed into one another. Hulk saw 4 more tanks coming towards him and felt the sting of bullets on his face. He looked in the direction of the bullets coming towards him. He saw the chopper with Ross barking orders at the remaining men. Hulk launched himself at the chopper. Before he could hit it, he was shot with a silver bullet that sent him tumbling towards the desert. He tried to regain his balance, but not before another silver bullet struck his shoulder. This time he was prepared and took the incoming fire, slowly gaining ground against the stationary tanks. One of the men in the tank was in complete awe, saying that the Hulk took every shot from the silver bullets and still hasn't died. Ross can't believe how durable and powerful the Hulk is. He now realizes this is the weapon the military needs if it is to stay on top. Who needs stealth when the men are indestructible and don't bleed? Entire governments could crumble at the hands of one man. He calls for reinforcements, claiming the Hulk is a priority target. The Hulk managed to reach a tank that was trying to retreat to safety. Hulk lifted the tank and tossed it at another tank, destroying them both. The remaining 2 tanks began firing while trying to reverse to a safe distance. The Hulk wouldn't allow for that. He ran up to a tank and flipped it onto its top side, and then running to the other tank and removed the turret portion and threw it at Ross's chopper, clipping one of the wings and sending it spiraling downward, with the military no threat to him. For now he quickly began moving northeast, jumping his way along. Mama Maria looked outside, her son beside her, and saw the silhouette of the large man. He asked his mom if that's a burden most people have to deal with. Meanwhile, Ross exited his destroyed chopper and threw a small tantrum before regaining his composure when reinforcements arrived. Hulk barreled his way to New York, Bruce's conscience giving the Hulk direction. Somewhere along the way, something on the ground started nagging at the Hulk. He slowed down and landed on the outskirts of Chicago and detransformed, passing out once again. Once he woke up, he was still in the small crater he had made earlier. He got to his feet. It was the middle of the night, and he took this to his advantage to roam the streets while they weren't bustling. He made his way to a familiar building. He entered the Chicago biologist headquarters. He tried to sneak around and find some suitable clothes, but not before bumping into an old love interest of his. Betty questioned what a homeless guy was doing in here and saw Bruce's tired, worn face. She quickly hugged him, telling him how worried she was that he had been killed and that her father covered it up. She was so happy to see him again. She kissed him and asked where he had been. He said he would explain everything. But he asked first if she knew where he could get some new clothes. She completely forgot she had just seen him wearing barely any clothes. She grabbed his hand and took him to her car. As she drove, she asked us tired if he needed sleep. Bruce said he didn't. He stated that he had been constantly tired ever since the experiment. He never got the proper sleep he needed, but he got used to it. She asked if he could explain what had happened. She heard her father's story but didn't believe he was a criminal with military intelligence. She knew Bruce had no foul intent. He began explaining how the Hulk was created by a flaw in his machine, with his heart rate and adrenaline causing a transformation. He told her that he finally met her dad, and he's pretty sure he made a bad first impression. Joking, she responded, saying he had made it his mission to find Bruce. He responded, saying he wished he had never tried to discover that serum. He hurt people and ruined his relationships. He said a day hadn't gone by without thinking of Betty. She retorted the same sentiment. Once they arrived at her apartment, she gave Bruce some clothes he had left there. She fed him a meal and tried to get him to come to bed. He said it wasn't a good idea. The military was still after him, and he had no idea how far behind they were. They could show up at any moment, and he couldn't escape knowing Betty could be hurt. She said that if anything happened, she would hide away and allow him to escape through the window in her bedroom. Bruce got a shower in before bed and finally fell asleep. Next to Betty, he felt a sense of normalcy again, a time before the Hulk. The stress disappeared. He fell into a deep sleep for the first time in months. The next morning, he woke up to Betty making coffee for him. He walked up to her and hugged her from behind, thanking her for everything. Betty turned around and grasped his face and looked into his eyes. She didn't see the tired look he had. She said he looked much better, and he said it was the best night's sleep he had gotten since before the Hulk. She kissed him and asked him if the Hulk could be calmed that way, he could control his actions easier. He said he had no idea he would rather kill the Hulk and be rid of it entirely. She asked if killing the Hulk was to kill a part of Bruce. Maybe it might kill Bruce entirely. He said it was worth a shot. He spoke about how he tried to find a cure while on the run. Still, he couldn't get the material or the research done in time before moving to the next place. She said she might be able to help him later if they waited until nightfall. That way, they could get into her work without anyone there. He said he couldn't stay. There was a major threat in New York that the Hulk had to stop. Apparently, he had been appearing at night and destroying parts of the city before anyone could fight back. He flees into the New York waters, and nobody can track him down. Reports say the places he attacks sustain increasing damage as the nights go on. Bruce assumed that, with time, he would grow more powerful. He said the Hulk may be the only way to stop this. Betty asked why the Hulk had to stop this creature. He said that the Hulk and this creature shared similar physical attributes, such as strength and size. Betty said before he left, they had to figure out how to help the Hulk. Bruce said that he would send all of his notes in a document he saved. He gave her blood samples. He told her that he hopes she can find a cure, but not to involve anyone else. He also said that if anyone seemed to be on her to throw out all the information, she did not deserve to be put in this situation. He knows that if he told her not to help, she would fight against it. He made her promise that Ross would not find out, and she promised that if he did, she would blame it on Bruce, saying it was planted evidence. Before leaving, she wanted to have one last intimate moment with him, but he said that his heart rate would cause him to transform. He said he can't do that anymore. She hugged him, telling him to be careful and to do what he could to work with the Hulk, not kill him. He told her he would try. Still, it doesn't seem like that would work, but he would try for her. They share one more kiss before he flees the city, transforming into the Hulk once again and making his way to New York to stop this creature before any more harm can be done. Later that night, Betty hears a knock at her door, and she sees it's her father, Colonel Ross. She asks him what he wants, and he says that Bruce seemingly traveled right through Chicago, and they were on his trail. He asked her whether Bruce had stayed here or tried to contact her. Betty claimed she had no idea that Bruce was even still alive, let alone in Chicago. She said he wouldn't be dumb enough to stop here, knowing the military was on his tail. She told her dad she knew they planned for him to be here when she was asked about Bruce. She said she knew that military agents were surrounding her home. Ross took her word for it and had his men search for more Hulk trails. Betty closed the door and saw military agents fleeing the area as she had predicted. She knew after that how much of a threat the Hulk was to her father, which meant Bruce was in even more danger than she could have imagined. By the time Hulk arrives, it's nighttime. He is fatigued from jumping across the northeastern United States all day, and now he must fight this creature, being called Aquan. The Hulk searches for Equan, looking all around Hell's Kitchen. This place is a familiar sight, not the good kind that eats away at your conscience. While the people around him shriek and cry from him, he listens for any commotion farther away, when all of a sudden he hears an explosion in the far-off distance. He maneuvers his way around the city like a jungle gym, eventually seeing his adversary. Aquan was tossing cars around like nothing at civilians. Hulk noticed a family that was about to be crushed by this car and swooped in to save them. He grabbed the car and threw it right back at Aquan. Aquan turns his head to see the Hulk and charges towards him in pure rage. He throws Hulk around easily. The Hulk is at a disadvantage though, fighting back. He is clearly fatigued from his travels. Buildings destroyed like Legos. The fighting is taken all the way to Harlem, where Hulk is thrown to the floor, and Aquan pins down the Hulk and begins to speak. He began to speak to the Hulk, referring to him as Bruce, telling him how he was his creation. His experiment turned him into this monster. This creature was his friend Arnie, he continued, saying felt no effects at first, but after a month, he began feeling very warm. He thought it was just a fever. Still, then his fever reached 120 degrees. He had never seen this before. It got to the point where he felt like he was on fire. He became irrational and jumped into the New York harbor to try and cool off this burning sensation. He ended up drowning from his lack of rationality, but while unconscious, his radiated body adapted to the environment around him, turning him into this monster. He awoke in this new body, feeling rage towards the man who did this. The sun was too painful for it. Hence, he attacked New York only at night, waiting to exact his revenge on the man who caused this. Bruce's conscience was able to grasp this information. It sickened him to think he caused harm to another person, let alone his friend, turning him into an incurable monster. He was able to speak from the Hulk, a weak, gravely, but sympathetic and sorrowful apology. But the Hulk did not care if a friend was there. This monster wants to kill Hulk, and he will not let that happen. Hulk musters his energy, pushing puny Banner away and out of control, and punches Aquan square in the jaw, allowing him to regain his footing and gain a foothold in this fight. The pure rage Hulk was able to muster from this fight made his veins pop, and his blood turned dark green. His body grew larger and turned green. Aquan watches as this monster begins to tower over him and tries to attack, but any punch or kick does little to hurt the Hulk. Hulk throws Aquan to the ground and punches Aquan repeatedly, while Aquan tries to escape this pummeling. Hulk throws him back and punches harder until Aquan stops trying to flee and then quits moving entirely. His body begins to shrink back to its former size, but it stays green. He stands over the body of Aquan, and Banner is able to step back in slightly and make Hulk realize there are helicopters, people, and tanks around him. Hulk looks up and sees it's dawn already. The fighting had lasted all night. He looks to see Colonel Ross with his tanks ready to fire upon him. Hulk takes one last look down at the former body of Arnie and looks back up at Ross with anger in his green eyes. His body expands onces again, larger and larger. Ross demands fired placed on the Hulk. As the silver bullets hit Hulk, they have zero effect on him. Ross's eyes widen in shock and fear as Hulk runs towards them. The men brace for death but feel nothing. They look up and see the Hulk jumped way over them and fled New York once again. Ross fell to his knees, realizing Hulk had just escaped again, but for the first time it was a good thing. He called for the immediate custody of the creature's body and had it taken in for testing. As he watched the Hulk grow more and more distant, Bruce continued his life on the run, fleeing south, escaping to Mexico, and then heading farther south. Full of guilt, he began working even harder on a cure for the Hulk, but he listened to Betty's advice to try to calm the Hulk and control his actions more. Meanwhile, Betty is working on a cure in her lab, trying and failing to find a medical solution to turn off the stress-induced blood cells, but is hopeful a cure will be found. Colonel Ross is being briefed that the Aquan hearing is a pointless avenue to pursue. Ross asks his advisors about the whereabouts of Banner, and they say they're still looking for him. He asks if there is any bit of DNA they collected from New York from the Hulk, and they say they tried and found no blood. Ross shouts in frustration, asking if there is anything they can do, and they claim a possible option has just opened up. 6 months later, Bruce is in South America, attempting to harness the power of the Hulk, and seems to have a little more control. Mid-credit scene. Bruce can't take the burden of the Hulk anymore, so he tied a weight to his ankle while on a small rowboat in the ocean and took a pistol, put it in his mouth, and fired. But the bullet was spit back out, and the boat broke under the Hulk's weight. End credit scene. A kid gets off a plane from Germany, shuffling to get his items back into his bag. After being tripped, his friend helps him up. He quickly stuffs a red spandex cloth into his bag before walking off. It's difficult to make a Hulk origin that is interesting. I definitely inspired my work from the original 2008 Incredible Hulk movie. I wanted to make Hulk the original gray at first. Comic accuracy, but also to show Hulk's future evolution, beginning with his rage and Hulk's control pushing him past his limits to make him stronger. I also think Aquan was a decent enough choice for the first Hulk movie, maybe forgettable, but I needed a Hulk villain to set up for more down the line. I plan for the Gamma Machine to be the butterfly effect that shoots parts of future stories into motion. The next episode is going to be much more detailed, so I hope to see you again in the next story.